Hey guys, so obviously by the title of this video today, I wanted to talk about why I do not feed my horses grain. I feel like it's often a misconception in the equine world that you have to feed your horse grain for it to be healthy, and it's stupid. Most of you guys know on my channel, if you're subscribed, that I am big into natural horsemanship. That's kind of my main thing. I'm just a natural horsemanship type of person. I don't use bits, I don't use spurs or chains or anything like that while training horses, and I like to let my horses live as naturally as possible, how they would in the wild, and let them use their instincts. So I don't stall my horses. And oftentimes my horses don't even have shelter because we have to put cattle in their shelter, so they have limited shelter a lot of time. And I mean, I would like them to have shelter, but I'm not too beat up about it because in nature they wouldn't have shelter and whatnot. So I like to let them live as naturally as possible. And in the wild and in nature, your horses live off of basically two things: water and grass. Horses are forage animals, so they are designed to live off of forage and different types of forage. So grass, hay is basically just dead grass, alfalfa, and I only feed my horses raw forage. I consider hay raw because it, it's dried out, but it's not cooked, it's not processed, it's not any of those things. So I only feed my horses things that are raw, such as oats. And I don't think I've ever given them flaxseed, but flaxseed is raw and stuff like that. Obviously you shouldn't give your horses corn, very limited corn for horses. But the only grain that I feed my horses is whole oats. Whole oats that we either harvest ourselves, or you can buy like 40-50 pound bags of just whole unrolled oats. The place that I work feeds their horses like a coffee can full, like a big can full of grain twice a day. And they feed like the Purina grain that is super processed, has tons of ingredients mixed in with it. And a lot of people these days think that they need to feed their horses grain for their horses to be healthy. Otherwise, they won't get proper nutrients, or they won't, look their best or something. And honestly, it's dumb because in the wild, your horses aren't going to need that stuff to survive. I get, show people mostly want their horses to pack on the protein, get all these extra nutrients so your horse just looks super muscular and super shiny and this and that. So they pack them full of these processed grains that are extremely sugary with all the molasses that they put in those grains so that your horse will actually eat them, and packed with energy. And then they feed their horses these energy filled grains and then put them in stalls. Screw with their mental health. But that's not really the point of this video. Basically, I don't feed grain because I don't feel like there is a serious need to feed horses grain. The only time that I can see people feeding horses large amounts of grain is if you have a senior horse that, just like people, old people, they don't hold on weight very well, they don't hold on their muscle and whatnot. So I can understand if you have a very old horse that is struggling to stay healthy, to feed them some grain or some bran mash and stuff like that. But if you have a perfectly young horse or, middle-aged horse that's doing fine, such as my horses, they're fine on their pasture, they're fine with just hay, the limited oats that I give them, I don't even feed them that many. And they do great. I don't understand why people think they need to pack their horses full of these sugary, energized grains when your horse really actually doesn't need a lot of the things that are in those grains. They're accessory and additive supplements that just make your horse cosmetically look better, but in the wild, your horse wouldn't actually need those things to be healthy and sustain and naturally what's the word? I guess just sustain themselves in the wild. It's really the accessory type of living that people are like, well, my horse needs grain, so I have to go get them some grain. I personally like to give my horses choices, so they are on pasture all the time, and I will throw hay in there, and if they want to go nibble on hay and eat pasture, eat clover, eat bark off the trees, whatever, they can do that and get different nutrients from the pasture, from the dirt, from the hay, and then I also supply them with salt and mineral blocks 24/7. So they have choices to natural salt because they're, you know, the same as we do. We need salt, not very much, but it is one of those supplements that they can have the free option to get. If their body tells them that they need salt, they can have free access to salt and minerals as they please. I don't have to keep force feeding them this sugary grain that tastes really good so that they'll eat and eat and eat a whole bunch of grain that they really don't actually need. Grain also is a feed that if you're having problems with your horses, such as they're very hot, have tons of energy, constantly want to go, 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 if you're putting them in a stall, if you see that they have a lot of behavioral problems, if they're very hot as well, if your horse's body is very warm, it's probably because of your grain. And not all the time, but a lot of times horses will get that hot and excessive attitude and stuff like that because they're eating so much grain, and it's supplying them with all of this extra excess energy. And if you're not turning a horse out to a pasture where they can run and blow off all that extra energy, then you might see some of those behavioral problems and stuff like that when you're riding them if you stall your horse. But it can happen even with horses that are in pasture that just get very hot and are hyper and energized all the time. Is a lot of times because that grain that you're feeding them has so much sugar and so much energy packed into it. I'm not a vet, I'm not a horse nutritionalist or anything like that, but I have done the research and have been around horses almost my whole life now, so from what I have seen, grain is very much an accessory item that people just feel better about themselves giving it to their horse and think that they're doing their horse a favor or something when they feed it to them, when really you're not really doing a better thing for your horse. Just supply them with the blocks and salt that they need so that they can have the free choice to bite or lick at the blocks if their body tells them that they need those things. But other than that, I only feed my horses whole oats and maybe some corn here and there if they're good, but obviously corn really isn't good for horses. So yeah, the only really processed thing I think I feed my horses are just treats, but yeah, I don't like to feed them all that processed, cooked down, preservative filled grain. So that's just my opinion on grain, why I don't feed grain, why you probably, if you're feeding your horse tons of grain, you probably don't really need to do that. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next, but bye.